you can give your time back to your family, and we don't have to let the business fall apart in that process. It is a 5-alarm fire in your life. There's hope, but you got to take action and you have to want it.
You're a man living in the modern world in a time when men and manhood are not what they once were. You live life on your own terms. You're self-sufficient. You think for yourself, and you march to the beat of your own drum. When life knocks you down, you get back up, because in your gut, you know that's what men do. You're a badass and a warrior, and on the days when you forget, we are here to remind you who you really are.
Welcome to Solid Man Podcast, where we aim to make men masculine again. I'm your man, Nicky Ballou, and we've got a great repeat guest, George Rivera, the Buy Back Your Time Formula Man. What's up, George?
Hey, Nicky, doing awesome. I'm glad to be back. How are you?
I'm blessed and grateful, man. Good to be talking to you, brother. Always good to talk to you, man. Whenever your name comes up, I start to smile. Whenever I see you, I start to smile. Hey, George, man, it's good times. Good times.
Man, it's awesome talking to you, the only Nicky Ballou in the world.
The only Nicky Ballou in the world. I love it. So, brother, you and I were chatting earlier this week about how the holidays can be a really rough time for marriage breakdown. And in particular, it seems to be a time where successful men who are really charging hard in their business seem to get ultimatums from their wives or actually even get hit with divorce paper. And I thought that'd be a good theme for us to get into. Maybe start by, telling us your backstory again. I know you told it last time you were here, but then let's segue nicely into this conversation.
Yeah. Real quick on the backstory. I'd say it starts back in the late 80s, early 90s, which is like middle school period or in my early high school days. Played in about 40 basketball games, and I always wondered why my dad doesn't make these games. He only attended one of them, and I always wondered, am I important to my dad? And, I'd score a basket and I look at the empty stands and there's no dad there, but my teammates would score and their dads are loving on them. And I remember thinking, I wish that was my dad, looking at another dad. And that would have totally crushed my dad hearing that, because he was a good man, but he gave his whole life to his career, and it cost him his family. And he kind of showed me as I was growing up that if you want to be successful, you have to be absent, because you're out there working and hustling and you're doing it for the family, even though the family never says, I want that. But yeah, anyway, somehow we get in our heads that, hey, we're doing it for the family. And so fast forward about 20 years from that, which is now 11 years ago, back in 2015, and my dad's gearing up for the last third of his life. He's 67 years old. His parents had just passed away a couple years prior in good health, just of old age in their mid-90s. And he's like, we're gearing up for another year. And there's this phrase, God laughs at man's plans. There was a different plan for my dad. He was diagnosed with cancer early on in the year and given a few months to live, made it to 10 months. But a couple of weeks before he passed away, he said these words that are really the foundation of my whole message. And he said, don't miss Leo's games. I miss too many of yours. And so when he said that, it hit me in two ways. First, it was like all that pain and confusion I felt as a child, like, didn't go to waste. That was kind of like, he just didn't know any better. And so like, that was a beautiful closure to that moment in my life. And then the other side of it was, holy cow, I'm my dad all over again. I'm missing all of the important moments for my son, who was also, 10 months old at the time. And I'm missing all of his firsts. He's learning how to walk and talk and communicate. And I'm just depending on my wife sending me pictures, because I'm not there for those moments. And so that was the first time it was really instilled in me in a loving way, like, don't do this to your son because you didn't like it, And I told myself I got to change, but I'll start tomorrow, because today I'm working 16-hour days. And it's like tomorrow. A lot of tomorrows came to 3 years. And I came to a place where I just wanted to burn my business down. And you would think that's crazy, because that year I was doing $20 million. I had a money printer, very profitable business. And as long as I'm not buying a helicopter every day, which I didn't, I should be set for life. And so, tell me that a few years prior, I'm like, I made it, I'm good. But it really was costing me everything, just like it did my dad. And my dad ended up losing our family as a result of it. My parents divorced, and that's never pretty. That's not a great thing to happen. First, it you lose access to your children. Like that's the biggest thing. You're breaking up a family. And then the other thing that a lot of people don't think about till it's too late is the financial cost of that. You know, um, oftentimes, the split could completely ruin the man, and put him in a point where he could like never recover from. So that's not good either. And in addition to losing access to your kids and then not being able to provide financially down the line, like that just like that could ruin somebody's life. And I've seen it happen. That's not a rare thing, that happens often, unfortunately. And so yeah, I did not want to go down that path. I've seen how that movie ends, and so I decided not to do that. But at that burning or that part where I was like wanting to burn the whole business down, I was like, just like I wanted out. I was like, I wanted to sabotage it. I was like, I want to sell it, but I can't sell a business tomorrow. It takes years to like from when you say I want to sell it to when it actually sells could be a multi-year process because I've sold businesses before. And so yeah, there's really no like logical way out except I called he's a dear friend now, but he was a coach and a mentor at the time. And he basically told me, hey, you got to stop doing what you don't like doing and keep doing what you like to do. And I'm like, 23 years in business and it finally clicks. I guess I'm a late bloomer, but from then on, I started to implement what I call now the buyback time formula. That didn't exist back then, but I didn't even know what a bottleneck was. I didn't know about frameworks or anything. But the pinnacle of my transformation happened 3 years later, more than doubled the business to $50 million in sales that year. But now I'm living semi-retired. I'm pouring into my family, pouring into my son. Like my dad said, don't miss Leo's games. I never missed any of his games. I poured into him. He's homeschooled, so he travels with us everywhere. I taught him how to negotiate real estate at 8 years old. Even to this current day, has a podcast, which you've been on. So,
Been super cool, man.
yeah,
You got to get him on my show, man. We got to make that happen next.
absolutely. That's the boy my dad was talking about, not to miss his games and literally don't miss his games, but also don't miss out on his life. And so I've been able to do that. So coming fast forward to current day, I had, a number of friends and peers tell me, you got to teach this stuff. And I'm like, teach what? And I was like, you're always traveling, you're pouring into your family, you're still making money. People would love to learn that. And so I really didn't have a framework for this until over the last year, say in middle of 25, the whole concept of buying back time. If you can, remove yourself from being the bottleneck in your business, you can use that time to do whatever you want. But I'm a family first, father first kind of guy. I'm like, give it back to your family. And so just like we have frameworks for the business, we need to have frameworks for the family and be intentional about that. Otherwise, it's like we bought back time, but now we're just doing more busy stuff in our business or starting another business. And so, yeah, I know I kind of threw a lot out at you, but wherever you want to pick it up from there.
Well, it's a hell of a story. And there's probably men that are listening to this and they're going, crap, that's me. Or
Yeah.
maybe it's not me yet, but I'm on the way to being that man. And, one of the hardest times of the year for people is holiday time. Christmas, New Year's, because life seems to slow down a little bit. And it seems to be that when the hecticness slows down is when the wife of a man who has given up all his time with his family comes over to him and gives him an ultimatum and says, okay, that's it. You're either going to spend more time with the family or me and the kids are out of here. And in some cases, they don't even give you the ultimatum. They just leave.
Yeah.
Right. And I want us to talk about that. First of all, why do you believe this is so prevalent during the holidays?
Yeah, well, like you said, like the world slows down and it slows down for all of us. And so like if you're like this high achiever, this hustler, again, that was me 10 years ago. You're going, and the rest of the world's like slowing down and you're almost like running your head against the wall with looking for stuff to do. And yeah, and the family's expecting you to slow down as well, like partake. And it's almost like they understand, most of the year you're out there hustling because you say you're doing it for the family, and they've already kind of learned how to get by without you. It's almost like they're planning a life without you. But when Christmas comes, that's like the expectation of families coming together. You got people coming in from out of town, and I imagine like these these wives are hearing it from their own family members or cousins or friends saying, "Wow, he's still working." It's like it's just a constant reminder of, does he ever like shut it off? And then you're seeing, or the woman seeing like her friends and peers and their husbands, they're present, with their family, and then they're thinking, "Man, I wish my man was like that." And so I think it just reveals a lot about, the bad habits, that we, and I speak as somebody who used to be there, establish, and we just don't shut it off. And honestly, I think we're so addicted to like working, we're so addicted to the having the on switch on, that we're just looking for stuff to do. And it's almost like we can't get away from our phone because we might miss a phone call or an email that's critical that I got to respond to, as opposed to just yeah, so critical, in our head, it's critical, but it's never really critical. I mean, I've had servers burned down that I should have said, let them burn. I'm never getting this moment back. And so there's nothing too critical to like lose out on, say, a childhood, for example. But yeah, those are just lies and excuses we tell ourselves. And yeah, the goal is to recognize that when it comes up. When I first started turning my life around, it wasn't like, snap and like, I got this whole thing down. Heck, even today, or current day, you still got to remind yourself, hey, this isn't, we're not that person anymore. So it's not like, you're just on autopilot, live in a certain way. You have to constantly refine anything that you're doing and keep those boundaries, because once you open it up, it's like no telling where you're going to go after that. So yeah, and like you said, sometimes women, that's the time when they'll say, I can't, this is it, I'm done. Yeah, here are the papers, or however it happens. And that was not an overnight thing. The average woman's thinking for 2 years before they
Yep.
end up to that point where it's like, here you go, I'm out, or you're out. Usually it's you're out.
You're out.
Yeah. I mean, you're paying for it, but you're out. And so, yeah, never a situation that you want to hear. So if somebody who's listening feels like they're at that point, or kind of like seeing the trajectory, there's still time to stop it. But you got to rebuild trust, because again, if you're like the me of say 10 years ago, you've already done the whole, I'll be there at the game. I'll be there for date night or whatever. But they're used to seeing you when you say it. It's more of a tentative thing. Like maybe you'll be there, because if there's a business fire, that's usually the first thing that goes. And so rebuilding that trust is important, and it's communicating with them and acknowledging, hey, I know that I've broken the family trust quite a bit, but now I'm committing to doing it. And I don't expect you to believe me right now. You will see with my actions over time. And I think just starting with that's how you begin healing the family. But you got to want it, you got to recognize it, and ideally build your business so that when you scale, you're scaling your own freedom, not scaling chaos. And when you don't build it properly from the beginning, that's how you end up scaling chaos. And that's how I did it.
Scaling chaos. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good title, man, for an
Yeah.
episode, a video. It's a good scaling chaos.
Yeah.
You said something, back when I got divorced, or back when my wife left me, which was in 2009. I was working with a coach, and his name is Owen Williams. And he was the first man to say, your wife had been thinking about leaving for 2 years before she pulled the trigger. And I had a hard time accepting that. But over time, I realized he was right. I started to look back, and the telltale signs were there. I was just oblivious to them. And far too many men who are working crazy hours think, look, I'm doing this for the family. Why is she upset? Well, she's upset because she didn't just hire an ATM. She didn't just marry an ATM machine.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and yeah, she might as well be a single mom. Like, what's the difference? At that point, they're thinking, hey, well, let me give my child a better life. Maybe there's another man out there that'll pay attention to me, because this one apparently isn't. So.
Yeah. And you also talked about the excuses and lies that men tell themselves. And I run a men's group in addition to E-Circle, called Sovereign Man, and a few of our E-Circle members are members of it. One of the men that runs it with me is a business owner who runs a landscape architecture and snow removal company called Green FX. And he said to me that, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Um, to the extent that a man's life is effed up, um, it's the same extent to which he's believing the lies that he's telling himself, you know, and it strikes me that many successful men are very skilled at becoming successful, at making money, and they think that that same skill set means they're skilled at marriage, at relationships, and at health. What would you say to those men?
Yeah, well, I kind of felt like I was one of those men, and it's like we need to realize that we're not experts in all of that. We need to like humble ourselves and kind of leave our egos at the door. And I think that's part of the first step of healing the family is to essentially, yeah, recognize and admit that no, yeah, I'm not an expert on, how to handle this relationship. And yeah, I think that's the first step in restoring the family bond and the family trust again. And then saying you're willing to commit to learning about it and asking for feedback and listening. I think listening is probably the biggest thing because if speaking as a guilty person in this before, it's like I've done a lot of talking and sometimes not enough listening. And so kind of going back to like what our mothers used to say, we got two ears and one mouth. Let's use our ears and see kind of what our other half has to say about it and actually do something.
So, a man's ego is necessary to help him be successful. It's our ego that allows us to go out there and do the things we need to do to grow a business, take care of our family. But a man's ego is pretty destructive if it comes into the marriage and the relationship. And maybe, George, you can draw a distinction between ego at work in terms of driving you to succeed and ego inside of a family relationship.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the self-identity too, and that is often a lie. In that, if you're not working or being productive, you're just being lazy or useless. And I think working and being productive can be kind of like this dopamine hit. You've got people that depend on you for work, and they see you being the hero. They see you hustling. That feeds the ego of being a provider and a worker. And I think that obviously bleeds over into other aspects of one's life, especially like the family and the relationship and the marriage. And yeah, if you don't control that can lead to bad things. And it's one of those things like it's hard to really find this perfect balance in life. And I feel like it's almost like God rigged it for not to be perfect because you were never gonna like reach to like, okay, we're good. There's always like a tension somewhere, and it's like I think if that was ever like completely handled, it'd be like, then what's the purpose of life? There's always got to be a little push and pull somewhere, but it needs to stay within a healthy range so that, we don't, go too far over here, too far over there. So I don't know if there's an answer to find a perfect balance to our ego, where to turn it on, turn it off, but just do our best. Yeah, communicate. Be vulnerable and be willing to take critical feedback because that's another thing that our egos will do too. Is it'll be like, nope, I'm good, I'm perfect, I'm at work all day providing for you. Why are you giving me this feedback? And yeah, it's this interesting dynamic that I don't know if there's a perfect balance, but there's ways to sort of check it at the door a little bit while you yeah listen more than come and bring in like all that brute force that works at work, but at home there's a whole different approach that needs to be used.
Yeah. I mean, I think the rules for men are your ego's fine when you're using it to push yourself. It's not so fine when you're using it to push other people.
Yeah, 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 that's true.
Yeah, yeah. So if there's a man who's listening here and his wife gave him the ultimatum or served him the papers, what do you want to tell him to give him some hope?
Yeah, I've seen stories before when the papers come, it's just, it could be one of two things. Could be something that's been brewing for a long time, or it could be just a spontaneous reaction that there could still be some hope to salvage. But either way, if there's children involved, that should definitely be a flashing red light that the commitment needs to be made for the family. And so, so my hope would be that you accept that as a warning that something needs to change. You can give your time back to your family and not into the business, but we don't have to let the business fall apart in that process. There's frameworks and structure, the same ones that I use to free myself up from being a bottleneck so that I can give that time back to my family. And so, yeah, I would just recognize that it is what they say, firefighters say, 5 alarm fire in your life,
Yeah.
and you need to take immediate action to rectify that, because that's not something that's just going to solve itself. It's going to lead to more problems and more pain. But
Yeah.
if that's you right now, there's hope, but you got to take action and you have to want it.
So talk about the buyback time formula method and the book that you wrote uh, for the.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Buyback time formula. It's a method of removing one from being a bottleneck to being present at home. That's the goal. And so there is a book called Buyback Time Formula, and it has everything I know about buying back time. There's no like secret, thing you got to buy to get more information. It's all in there. I am available to be reached out if somebody wants me to walk along them in the journey. I know the me of 10 years ago, my avatar, cash rich, time poor. I would have paid a small fortune to collapse the time it took me from being the bottleneck to being present for my family, so that we could have the transformation, the outcomes that we've experienced so far. And so, yeah, but again, my all my knowledge is in the book, and it's got all my frameworks. The first thing is to identify where's all your time going in your business. There's a process for that. And then to identify what is your hourly value worth, what's your dollar per hour rate, and then you scrutinize all the time that you're spending, like what tasks am I doing that are underneath that dollar value, and there's a process to get that off of your plate. There's only 3 things you could do with any task that you shouldn't be doing, which is eliminate things that don't really matter or move the needle, automate things that repeat, and then delegate with proper ownership. Now, had you told me that 10 years ago, I'd say, yeah, I'm delegating. I got 40 people working for me, but everything kept bouncing back up to me, and I'd rob from the future. I'd say, it's easier if I just do it myself. And then I just keep paying them like a crazy person. Like I'm paying them to do something that I do for them. It's just insane. And I was living insane for many years. And so, yeah, that it really all starts there. And there's plenty of other frameworks to sort of walk you through to the finish line.
Yeah.
But it all starts with the audit of your time, and then things that you need to move off your plate.
So the message really is, if your wife is either giving you an ultimatum or serves you with papers, there's still hope. And especially if she's giving you the ultimatum. If she serves you with the papers, there's hope, but it's tougher.
Yeah.
Smaller level of hope. And either way, you really ought to have a conversation with another man. And I suggest that man be George Rivera, and let him show you how you can get off that train to doom and get on the train to paradise. Because family is the most important thing in life. At the end of the day, everything you do is for your family. It's for your wife. It's for your children. It's for the legacy that you're leaving for future generations. And it needs to be in that framework that you do what you do. And you can't fit your family into the framework of the business comes ahead of everything. Because if you do that, you're going to lose what matters most to you. And most men say that family matters most to them, but they act like it's fifth or sixth down the list.
That's it. Been there, done that, and changed it.
Yeah. Exactly. And you gave me your book. Let me just think it's here. Just hold on.
Yeah.
Here we go. There we go. The buyback time formula. It's on my list. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my list. I'm going to read it shortly. Yeah. It's a wonderful book. It's chock full of frameworks and action steps, but it's a book full of heart that really feels your pain. And as a man who's drowning in his business, but putting on a brave face like you got it all figured out, this could be the lifeline you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. George, any last words?
No, that was well put, Nikki. Yeah, the book's 128 pages. I put everything in there. And like I said, my contact info is there if anybody wants more help. But yeah, I'd say the last thing is like, nobody on their deathbed ever says, I'm so glad I missed your game for that client meeting. I guarantee you on that deathbed, you won't remember the name of the client, but you will remember whether you made an effort to go to games or not. And so while we're all going to reach our deathbed or our later days, and we're all going to have regrets because we're human, but the goal is to minimize the regrets that we have, and that we can say, hey, I was blowing it for a period, but when I became aware that there was a problem, I did something about it. And now I can hang my hat on that I gave it my best. And that's it. And we're good. And so that's my hope and my prayer for every man listening, is that they can say that when they're in their final days.
That's a beautiful message, brother. God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.